It is the We Argue Morning Crew. I am George Daigle, and yes, you're in the right place to get sizzling subjects, trending topics, and great music early in the morning. Of course, great stimulating conversations. Yes, I said conversations early in the morning. Now, I have three very special and distinguished guests in the studio with me this morning. The queen here in the building this morning, Onyx Keesha Monroe, who is a director, actor, and producer. We'll talk about her curriculum vitae. That is my favorite word. You can borrow it anytime you'd like. And Dr. Elijah Nicholas, who is an author, actor, and speaker. And Jamel. I'm going to say it like that. You
That's
can take it if you...
supposed to say it, baby.
Really is?
It's Jamel, actually.
Jamel Ashley Ware. Love it, love it. And he is an actor. So we're going to talk about this. Now, our meeting initially started via Instagram, but first I'm going to introduce everybody and tell them who you are, what it is that you do, for those people that don't know you here in the area. And we'll start with you, Dr. Nicholas. Tell us about yourself, who you are. Now, you're going to have to pick that up and put that in your mouth like food. Now. All right, there you go.
Is that good?
That's
Food?
perfect.
All right.
Food, yes, food.
Yeah, I'm trying to be good. I've had so many opportunities so far. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm Dr. Elijah Nicholas, and I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been in Atlanta for about 21 years now.
All right, you're adopted. You're officially from here now.
I'm officially
from here now.
All
yeah.
right, I'm officially from Atlanta. Then I'm retired from the United States Air Force.
Thank you for your service.
You're very welcome. It was indeed my pleasure to serve. So I'm a writer, as you said, an author, an actor, and a speaker. I do my advocacy work through my writing.
Okay, good. We'll talk about your books and some of your work. And to the queen here in the middle, Ms. Monroe.
Hello.
I just knew that voice. Hi, Mr. President. Now come a little bit closer.
Okay.
All right. Now.
Very good.
All right. Now tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Onyx, and I'm primarily a producer. I'm also a director and an actress. My art is my activism. I produce for mainstream media as well as independent projects. I have been in Atlanta for 11 years. Am I adopted?
Yes, you are adopted. You're adopted. Yes, yes.
And I have a performing arts school with a location in New Jersey, Atlanta, and Las Vegas.
All right. It sounds like it's going to be an interesting conversation. Now, over there to you, Jamel. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Jamel Ashley. I am an actor, an entrepreneur, and an activist. I currently in the city, I run an investment program for young Black queer entrepreneurs from idea stage to established businesses. We take them, we run them for a curriculum, and then we give them a $2,000 investment. So that's what I do until I get my role, my big role.
And
waiting on it.
And it's on the way. Now, we started our conversation initially online, Elijah, Dr. Nicholas, and we were talking about a very interesting character who we all know and love, Madea. And the prequel to the Madea character is in the works. I forget exactly what the distribution is going to be or who is the vehicle that he's running through. But that was the story that I posted on Instagram, the WERUradio Instagram. And your response was very interesting in that. So why don't we just delve into what we were talking about via Instagram?
Absolutely. So I usually don't respond in detail like that. Let me just say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought since it was an LGBTQ plus friendly atmosphere that I would respond. And so it was no mistake that I had just started watching another movie, Coming to America, the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And I got like probably 13 minutes into that movie, and I was like, oh, gosh. And it was because of the description, if you will, of a representation of trans individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw your post about Madea coming out and going on, I believe, Showtime Network,
mm-hmm.
I thought this is a great opportunity to talk about how trans individuals are represented and non-binary individuals are represented, specifically in Black movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where my response came from.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting point because as I was reading it, and of course I'm the voice of the audience as well as myself, who is a member of the LGBTQ community. But when you made that response, one of the things that I thought was interesting in that was, is Madea considered a representation of the trans community in some offshoot way? And I wanted to have that conversation.
Well, I guess it just depends on the lens that you're viewing it through. I think that one of the things, and Jamel and Onyx can probably speak to this more because they've been in the industry longer than I have. But one of the challenges I see is, even though it may not be written as a trans character, it can be perceived as a trans character.
Okay.
And so how that individual is interacted with on camera is critical, because that sets the tone for society and for how the community views trans and non-binary individuals.
Now, Ms. Monroe,
Yes.
in the context of being a producer of film and changing and the voice of people in the industry, how do you see that representation, the Madea characters specifically, but then moving on to the entirety of the film industry and the representation of the trans community?
So I really think intentionality is important. I am not sure that the intention or the scope of the Madea character is to be representative of the trans community. And so I definitely take that into account. However, we have to be accountable for our audience. And while Madea may not be a trans character, how she shows up is very aligned with the truth of many people in our community. And so I think that while it's entertainment, while it's comedy, when we're in the industry, we also have to really be mindful about the messages that we're sending out, especially on such a large platform. I believe it's a conversation that needs to be had in the context of a Madea film, not just being trans or non-binary, but also things like if it's just a representation or it's cross-dressing or it's a drag queen, whatever it is, these conversations, especially in Black films, are only brought up in a comical or mimicking disrespectful way. So it would be amazing if it would be brought up in a different way that shows a level of comfort and understanding, as opposed to we're just laughing at this group of individuals.
That's really good, because I don't know, and I'm coming to you in just a second, Jamel, so go ahead and take that mic over there. But it's interesting because I think that a lot of people who aren't in the LGBT community are, have this tunnel vision. So they don't even recognize that there is the possibility that this character can transfer or be viewed from the transgender lens. So when we look at the Black community as a whole, they see it one way, but the trans community sees it another. So as an actor, seeing that, how does that interpretation or how do you feel that can be skewed or taken in a different direction so everybody can understand that?
I actually think that I have a different view than my two friends sitting here. I really, when I look at Madea, I don't see trans representation. I don't see non-binary representation. I understand Madea simply as Tyler Perry's created character. So for me, I don't find an offense to it, and I don't even think that it sits in the realm of what it is to be a trans actor. Now, I definitely understand the intentionality that needs to be necessary when we're writing our characters and when we're producing shows, but I just don't see Tyler Perry falling in underneath that aspect. I think he has his completely own different genre. Madea has always been a character that he's embodied, and that is just that. So when I'm thinking about trans actors and representation, I'm thinking about people that are actually acting. So I'm thinking about Laverne Cox, and I'm thinking about all the emerging trans male actors that are on the screen right now. I believe that we're in an era where we're doing a good job at representing ourselves on the screen. And I say this because Friday I just sat down with an organization called Pop Shift. They took 50 trans leaders and set them down with 50 TV writers.
Wow.
To talk about how writers can better represent trans and gender nonconforming actors on the TV. And from that conversation, these individual one-on-ones that I was able to have, it's apparent that writers are being intentional, that they are trying to put in the work so that the representation can be there. And I rather, for myself, put my energy into the projects that are going to embody trans identity in depth versus someone like Madea, to me, who is just, at best, it's cross-dressing. And at best, I see that that Tyler Perry is trying to take his comedy, but also deliver some sort of messages, whatever messages Tyler Perry has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree with you. When I see it, and being from the community and being respectful to the transgender community, who I absolutely love and see them, I didn't perceive that. That did not cross my mind at any time. But when you made that comment, I was like, wait a minute. Okay. Now I see that. Now we're going to take a little break, get back into the music. But when we come back, I want to talk about transgender visibility in film. Pose and Laverne Cox and Angelica Ross and T.S. Madison, for that matter, and talk about that and how important it is that the lens encompasses, because each one of those individuals that I named have become a representation, and people want to say, well, T.S. Madison is the right representation, or Angelica is the right representation, or any one of the other people that are on Pose, as a matter of fact, or Laverne Cox is the right representation. So I want to talk about that when we come back from the break a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with me this morning, it is Dr. Elijah Nicholas, Ms. Monroe. That's it. That's all. That's all we need. And Jamel Ware. We're going to talk about trans visibility in the arts, in film in particular. And we'd love to know what you think. You can go to our social media and sound off, WERUradio, all one word. You can look for us there. And it'll be posted on YouTube a little bit later on. We'd love to know what you think. We'll be back. Good morning.
I'm your girl, Miss Sophia, holding it down right here on WERUradio, home of urban music for the LGBTQI community and me. Between the hours of 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., this is Club Chit Chat. That's right. You know how we do it, honey. We're going to be talking about sports, politics, entertainment, and a little of this and a little of that. That's why we call this Club Chit Chat. I'm your girl, Miss Sophia, holding it down right here on WERUradio, home of urban music for the LGBTQI community and me. Come on, baby, let's ride.
We have three distinguished guests. If you're just joining us, it is Onyx Keesha Monroe, Ms. Monroe to you, Dr. Elijah Nicholas, and Jamel Ashley Ware. We're here in the studio. They're actors and producers and directors in the community, and we're just talking about the trans visibility in the community. Now, there was a story last week, and again, off the air, great conversation. So sometimes they happen, we got to recreate them. But if you remember, there was a story about Angela Stanton King. Now, she was supposed to appear on the Dr. Phil show. And the Dr. Phil at the time was supposed to kind of mend the fences between Angela Stanton King and her trans daughter. And she showed her unmitigated butts. Her unmitigated butts when it came to this story. And she just spewed this vitriol, posted this vitriol against Ashley Marie Preston, who was the transgender advocate on the show at the time. And we're going to play this and then have a conversation about this and how this particular instance does translate directly into the representation of who we are in film. And here it is. Don't act like that, girl. You better talk. You better say something.
Ain't ready for it.
And she does not want to talk. Hold on.
She being stubborn.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, okay, so I'm just going to give it to you straight. I am Angela Stanton King. This is my acting debut, ladies and gentlemen. Fuck Dr. Phil. Fuck his mother, fucking wife. Stanton King says, fuck goddamn Paramount Studios. Fuck all you crazy dumb ass sons of bullshit and bitches. Think a dick is somehow magically turned into a pussy. This is her words, not mine. She also called Ashley Marie Preston a tranny on several different occasions. Referred to her as sir, attacked her for not having biological children. She's never going to have children. Now, Preston, of course, she was there to offer her expertise and help facilitating the conversation between Stanton King and her trans daughter. She also shared that Angela Stanton King went after her on Instagram after that. And let's see. Angela Stanton King says, for the record, I never contacted Dr. Phil Show. They contacted me, offering help. They are liars, pushing their agenda of turning as many black men and boys as they can into women. She says that you can lie and play games all you want. Like I said, don't let me catch you around my children. Don't play with me about mine. Now, this MF want to cry about trans hate. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. I wish I could have played it, but I am having real technical difficulties on this morning. That was not a Freudian slip. Yes, I said it on purpose. But that was a very triggering situation. And in that, the black community did not come to the defense of Ashley Marie Preston or Angela Stanton King's trans daughter. So as we look at the lens, bringing it back to that conversation, as we look at how it relates to the visibility of trans people in film, how do you think that this conversation, this rhetoric, this vitriol takes away or should lend more visibility to trans people? Anybody?
Go ahead, Jamel. Well, you know what? I will start. So I think, first of all, I feel for Ashley Marie having to be the recipient of such hate, right? And I also feel for Miss Stanton's daughter experiencing that hate, because I can't imagine how much hate she experienced growing up. And I think that, there's so many layers there. First of all, the black community not coming to the rescue, if you will, of Ashley Marie and the trans community. That's an ongoing problem that we've experienced. We could go all the way back to the situation that happened with Jesse Smollett, when many people came to his rescue, and I did a commentary then, and I said, if he were not a celebrity, would they have come to his rescue?
Right.
Especially when you think of the number of black trans women who have been murdered. We're at number 13 already, and 14 now. Okay, I stand corrected. 14 in 14 weeks. So that's an average of one black trans woman or one trans person or non-gender person being killed per week.
Yes.
And so that has to stop, right? And it stops by leaders, celebrities coming to the forefront and saying, Angela Stanton, what you said was wrong. Call her out, and then educate her on why she's wrong. Because I personally hear a lot of ignorance, I hear a lot of hurt, and I hear a lot of past trauma in her responses. Right. That's not an excuse. I believe it's a reality, and it's again, there's so many layers. We don't talk about how mental health and therapy has been shunned in the black community for so many years, right? And so if we're not going to talk about mental health and how that's impacting not the trans individuals, but the people who deal with trans individuals, the people who can't deal with us because of their past trauma.
Now, one of the conversations that we had off the air was we were talking about mental health.
Yes.
And we were discussing that, trans dysphoria was gender dysphoria, excuse me, thank you, was at one point considered a mental health issue. And Stanton King kept saying that her daughter, I apologize, she's saying her son, but I know it's her daughter, was mentally ill.
Yes.
But you brought something that was very interesting that I probably read but didn't remember, but you heard the term. Go ahead with that.
Absolutely. So in 2019, the World Health Organization has actually said that gender nonconformity is no longer a mental health issue. And they are pushing for the entire government to say that gender nonconformity, specifically, that there's a difference between gender dysphoria and gender nonconformity, but it's not a mental health issue. Now that is life changing. That is a whole paradigm shift in and of itself. But so we have to get to the understanding that being transgender is not a mental health issue. It is not. It's no more of a mental health issue than it is for a black person to be black.
Right.
And I bring that up because of the history of slavery and how we, as African Americans, were taught that we were less than human because of our race. Obviously, that is not true. So it's no more true for transgender individuals to be mentally ill. Not every transgender person has gender dysphoria.
Right. That's a good point. Now, I want to talk to that because there are so many representations of transgenderism. Is that right?
No.
Transgender life?
Being transgender.
Being transgender.
Transgenderism actually can be perceived as a negative connotation. So when we say transgendered or transgenderism, that's actually not the right form or context.
You better teach.
Yeah, I'm learning, and I'm even in the community, we're not all using the correct language, and so this is a teaching moment, and I'm ready.
Absolutely, and I'm a lifelong learner myself. I just started transitioning. I just transitioned 3 years ago, so believe it or not, all of this stuff I've learned in the last 24 to 36 months. So I used the word transgendered myself one time in a post, and I was immediately corrected by one of my transgender siblings. So it's an educational process for all of us.
Yes.
But so I just wanted to throw that in there because I want our listeners to understand the dichotomies that exist and how a conversation can be a triggering moment for someone who is of the trans experience.
Now, we were also having the conversation previously about, again, a little shifting, and thank you for that.
Yes,
I now understand. One of the things about the representation is that there are so many lenses to view it through. And that not any one person specifically is the representation of what it is and what it means to be a transgender female, transgender man. And one of the things that we were talking about was that when people are in the arena, those microaggressions, the conversations that they have, or when a person is in a cast and suddenly their affirmity, maybe their self, is now known, and that whole climate changes. Can you talk about that a little bit, Ms. Monroe?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that I'd like to say is it often becomes a matter of safety on sets where there is someone who is trans and is not out about it, and then they are outed. It becomes we underestimate how dangerous that can be. Because just like that woman, there are people who have very strong opinions in and outside of the industry. And so when you're not ready or equipped to help, you have to, at least I know on my sets, I have a very strict policy. Like that will get you fired if you're outing somebody.
Wow.
And it's not there's many moral reasons, but really it's a safety issue. And then we just have to be really mindful of that. And I think that's an aspect of the conversation we don't talk about. The Black community silence speaks volumes. The silence about this incident that happened, coupled with the murders that are happening, is huge. That is the conversation that needs to be had, because just because someone is trans does not mean they are not a part of the Black community. And if we're talking about our lives matter, all lives matter for us means that trans lives matter just as much as cisgender lives. And so it's the same thing in the industry. there's this perception that we're more open and we're more creative and we're artsy, and so we don't have these issues, but we do.
Certainly. Now, it's good that you brought it up. Black Lives Matter. And, when we were in that whole situation during the Black Matters movement and protests, and other people were included in that from the Black community.
Yes.
They were like, no, not right now. I mean, y'all matter, but not right now. And it boggles my mind. And again, the question is, when you're in film, you're watching television, representation means everything. And I know a lot of people say, well, why y'all talk about it so much? Because you are not seeing us. You're not seeing them. You're not seeing that community. You're not understanding. You're not having empathy. And that is why it's so important to see even more roles. Now, why Pose is important, it's a periodic piece for a lot of people. So they're kind of like in a time vacuum. They're not dealing with issues and situations in the now. And so while a lot of them had a lot of misconceptions in the community, in their storylines, the arc of the story doesn't really go as deep as the situations that we're seeing, like with this Stanton King and all of the murders and so forth and so on. Didn't really go deep into that. So I think that more representation is really needed. So as an actor and as a producer, how do we make the people who greenlight these projects see that and do that and be that for us? Anybody? I know that was a hard question. I know it was a tough one.
Wow. Yeah, that was a tough question. How do we make the people that greenlight projects understand that trans representation is important? Is that what you're...
That is the question.
I think for me and for my other fellow trans actors, I believe that it's important that we continue to show up.
Yes.
It's important that we continue to make ourselves present in the room, asserting ourselves as actors and actresses, not as trans actors and actresses.
Important.
But just as who we are in our field. I also think it's important for people like Onyx to keep producing and to keep creating content, because there are allies. It's important for our allies to stand up for us. One person I always think about in the Black Lives Matter movement that associates with being an ally to the trans community is Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union.
Yes.
The way that they are in the forefront as cis gender individuals talking about their daughter in a positive light that also is educational.
Yes.
They don't pay attention to the negativity. They always stay on cue with understanding.
That might be that big acting role you're waiting on.
But it's important for our cis allies to say something.
Yes.
In the absence of us. And it's important for us not to back down. Don't just place me in a role because you wrote it for a transgender character. Place me in a role because you see me as an actor. But we're so divisive in our community as Black people. It's because we don't take the time to understand one another, which is why when Dr. Elijah asked me to be here this morning, I said 8 in the morning, whew, when I have to get up. Why? Because if I'm not here, then our voice is not being heard. And that is vitally important. We have to learn to work in tandem with each other, with our allies and as trans entertainers.
Yes.
That is so good. Now, so much more to unpack, because I got to stop having these conversations off the air with y'all, because I forget what we were talking about before. But I do want to say that in this conversation, it's important that you hear new terms, understand what it is that it means to be visible, not just portrayed, because there's a difference.
Yes.
There's a difference than being portrayed and being represented. And so that's what we want to speak to. And it all started from an Instagram conversation about a well-known character, Madea. And here we are having a very important conversation about something that touches us all, whether or not you are part of the trans community or not. And we can continue the conversation a little bit later on. If you're tuning in, we have Onyx Keesha Monroe. We have Dr. Elijah Nicholas and Jamel Ashley Ware. We'll be back. Good morning.
My name is so boring next to y'all. It's like Jamel.
I mean, but when you roll that
Monroe.
R like that, like I can't even do that. Yes.
What's up, Facebook? Thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. We're going to be right back.
We will be right back.
Are you tired of sitting on the couch and not sure what to do? Or are you looking for a career change? Ever thought about having a career in medical billing and coding? Look no further. iCode Academy is here to help. iCode Academy's 16-week training and exam preparation course can provide you with the coding knowledge and real-world skills employers are looking for. Complete the course and you can earn up to $60,000 annually, all while working from home. Learn more. Call iCode Academy at 1-866-553-2928 or visit us online at www.icodeacademy.org to register and become a certified medical billing and coding specialist today. iCode Academy. Call now. 1-866-553-2928. A licensed and educational partner of the AAPC.
It is the We Are You Morning Crew, and we are back, ladies and gentlemen. A great conversation is already in progress. If you're just tuning in, I have three very special and distinguished guests with me here in the studio. I have Ms. Monroe. Her full name is Onyx Keesha Monroe, just like our mayor, Keesha. Like that name. I like that name. Dr. Elijah Nicholas and Jamel Ashley Ware are all in the studio. Now, we began our conversation talking about trans visibility in film and in arts. And we started the conversation off with talking about Madea and that perception of the character and the viewing it through a transgender lens. But then there was a conversation that we had off the air, and I'm trying to adopt Miss Sophia's stance on conversation off the air. But they get so good, you can't help but have them. But what I wanted to talk about was we were talking about to cast trans or not to cast, or when to cast trans and or not to cast trans. That is the convoluted question. So let's talk about that. Now, we were talking earlier about Angelica Ross and that whole cast from Pose, and I don't want to leave out the other people's names, but they're not here. And Laverne Cox and the others who are quite visible and working and booked and busy. How important is it when we see a trans role, a trans-specific role? Is it that we see a transgender person in that role, or is that not necessary? Anybody can take that first, whoever would like to take it.
It's absolutely necessary to cast a transgender person in a trans-specific role. That representation is absolutely imperative to the narrative of the transgender entertainer. It's also important to cast trans actors in non-trans roles. Why? Because we are actors and actresses, and we can play roles, and any role the role should not be, what am I trying to say here, caught up in our identities, right? We are more than our gender identity, so there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to play the cop or the lead in a non-LGBTQ friendly movie or TV or whatever.
Now, over to you. I'd love to hear your perception as the producer and the director and the actress.
So I spend a lot of time casting. Even with my casting directors, we spend a lot of time talking about this. It's very, very important for me in any project that I work on. If there is a trans-specific role, I will always desire to cast a trans person in that role. For a couple of reasons. I always want to bring truth to a character, and while actors are trained to do this, to really understand the trans experience in a trans-specific role is going to take a lot of time and study to even get it right. And I think during this day and age where there is so little representation, it's like, I don't want us to be fooled. We do have some faces, but we are grossly underrepresented as a people, then as a LGBTIQ plus community, and then trans representation is extremely rare. Even though we have these glimmers of people who are standing out, still there's so much work to do. And then when it comes to trans men, I mean, who can we name that is a trans man who is in mainstream media that is really, really visible?
Brian Michael Smith.
and for those people that don't know Brian Michael Smith, who is he, and why should we know him, and where do we know him from?
Brian Michael is an actor on, oh my God, what's the name of that show? It's a cop show.
It's a cop show.
Oh, I
know.
can't.
Law and Order. That's all. That's
Nine. Oh, let me look this up.
Is it 911 with Angela Bassett? And is that the one?
No, here.
See, well, as soon as he gets to know Brian Michael Smith, we will know about Brian Michael Smith. But in the meantime, yeah, I think it's important that we have that representation. One of the questions is, and has come up and has been a point of controversy for a lot of people in the community, is when you see a straight person playing a trans affirmative role, a transgender character. Is that damaging to the community, or anybody who wants to take it?
Well, I think it is, in the sense of there's just not a lot of opportunity out there. So we should be looking to our trans actors first, and not even just straight actors taking the roles. I cast a series, and I cast a very masculine presenting lesbian woman in a trans role. And I quickly realized that was a mistake. And I recast that character. And at first it was like, well, she presents very masculine. She's an actor. She's a friend. Let me put her in this role. And I did not feel like that was the right thing to do, especially because I'm around so many trans men. It didn't feel right to me, so I had to recast her.
Now, Dr. Nicholas, go ahead. Dr. Nicholas, what do you think?
Oh, I think that it's absolutely imperative that we have trans representation, not just because there are those of us out there trying to get into the entertainment industry and already there, but also because of the audience. Right? When I was casted in my very first role in a play at Emory Theater in 2017, that is when I realized my true identity. That is when I came to understand what being trans and non-binary is, right? And so for me, it was an enlightening time. And so when we think about the audience and the message that we're sending by having a trans character on screen, there are children and teenagers who will see themselves represented on the screen and be able to more quickly come into their truth because they see who they are on the screen.
That is extremely important. Now, I know you have an opinion.
No, I actually have nothing to add to this. I just want to give Brian Michael Smith his flowers because his show just came out last year. It's 9/11 Lone Star. He plays one of the main characters. So I just wanted to make sure that we know, so we support him.
Absolutely.
In that. I have nothing else to add. Y'all not said that all, but we have to give Brian Michael his flowers while he's here.
All right. Well, make sure you check out 9/11 Lone Star so that you can see representation of our community. Ladies and gentlemen, I got a few technical difficulties. I'm going to work those things out, and we will be back with our special guests, Ms. Monroe, Jamel Ware, and Dr. Nicholas, here talking about trans visibility in art and in film. Good morning.
Hey! Woo! Hey! Sing, y'all! Hey! Hey! Sing, y'all! Hey! Woo! Hey! Sing, y'all! Hey!
first of all, I want to talk to you, Onyx, about what it is that you do, because people need to know you is somebody. I mean, all of you are somebody, but you is somebody. Tell the people about yourself and who are you working with and all that.
So I work for Jupiter Entertainment, which is like a true crime beast in these streets. Everything from Fatal Attraction, Snapped, so many things. And I never watched true crime before I was contracted, so it was a very interesting experience.
I'm sorry, Snapped is the scariest show on TV.
Man, it makes you not want to get in a relationship. Never again, ever.
I've never seen it.
Oh man! But I primarily produce for a show called For My Man, which is on TV One. It's a true crime show about women who commit crimes in the name of love, and it's a very humbling experience. I went into it being kind of judgy, and even though I try not to be judgy, but I have learned to connect to the humanity of everyone. And so it's a beautiful experience. And I'm also the vice president of production and content at iElevate Plus TV, which will be launching in June on Roku, Apple TV, iOS, as well as online. And we are a Black LGBTIQ and same gender loving network. And we have just some amazing content and some wonderful surprises. This is not your average online network. We are on television, and we have invested a lot of resources into creating stellar content.
Wow.
So that's something I'm really, really, really proud of. Been working really hard on for the last almost a year.
So for all you LGBTQ actors and maybe even those allies, look for Elevate and find out, because you may get your next big role via that platform. Look, I'm gonna have to holler. I'm gonna have to get myself an agent or two. But now we were talking or two. See, I did.
You only have one in the Southeast region.
Dang it! Dang it!
Agents don't play that.
Already breaking the rules. Dang it!
He come in breaking the rules. I want 2 agents.
Well, now another conversation that we were having was the very touchy situation of religion. And let's start with the firestorm that brewed around Lil Nas X and the release of his film, video, Montero, Just Call Me By Your Name, and how the Christian right, that's what they want to be called, so I'm calling them that, were up in arms. Because how dare you, first of all, wear the garment that we've given you. We told you because you exist, because you breathe, because you who you are, because you live in your truth, you are hell, you are the devil, you are sin personified. And after he decided, well, I'm going to put this garment on and I'm going to wear it because you've given it to me, then they have the audacity to be mad because he did it. How do you can't have it both ways, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
But let's talk about that, because that, of course, is representation in film, not of the transgender community, but in some ways he took on that. And I'll talk to that because there was somebody that said that it was a little bit offsetting that he chose his feminine personification to use where that wasn't his message all along. So then that skewed the view for the transgender community. But we're talking, that's a whole different conversation. But let's talk about first how religion has played in that portrayal, especially when it comes to that video.
Let me just say, I love how God works. I love that we're having a conversation about Lil Nas and the right-wing Christians. I don't think we would be having this conversation but for Lil Nas's video.
Right.
And so, because all things come from God, I believe that it's strategic, right? And so when we talk about religion and film, I just watched, I'm watching a series, All American. And the episode that I watched last night with Tay Diggs and, is her name Frida? That played on Empire. She played the kind of stud.
Oh yeah. I know you're talking about that.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, she plays Coop is her character, and she's gay. She's closeted. She's in high school, and just in this particular episode that I watched over the weekend, her mom is the choir director.
Oh, you just started.
I
You just
literally
started.
just started. I said, I don't watch TV. Somebody told me to take time and watch some TV, right? So this is what I'm watching. And yes, I just started. This is a second or third episode. And so in this episode, she basically comes out to her mom. And for me, it was almost a triggering moment because when her mom came in and she was not doing anything sexually, but she do, you know, what teenagers do. She was laying next to this girl that she has a crush on, and her mom came in and, you know, basically was like, go home, whatever. And then she comes in the kitchen, the dining room, right, the kitchen table, and it reminded me of when I came out at 14 to my mom, right? And the piece that ties in with religion is the mom is a choir director. And so she's saying basically, like, if you can't abide by the rules of this house, which obviously the governing rules are the Bible in that particular house, then you can't live here anymore. And so it'll be interesting how this story plays out on TV, but I was very appreciative of how the writers wrote this character in. They actually showed two women kissing on camera, and then they also had this religious aspect. So now these two constructs are coming together. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, and they probably know the ending already. Don't tell me
And
the ending.
and not just two women kissing, but a masculine presenting woman,
Yes,
and a feminine presenting woman. Because we can find two women kissing on TV all day, but they both very feminine and pretty, but it's not an actual representation.
Yes.
So I appreciate P Valley because of folks like Uncle Clifford and Lil Murder, because these are real people. Now I believe TV is getting to a point where we are getting actual representation of what exists in our community on the film. They ain't got nothing to do with religion, but I wanted to bring that part up because it matters how we're depicted.
Yes.
If people only see us in one certain light, I guess I think back in the 90s, whenever you saw gay people on TV, they were very stereotypical and very flamboyant. And yes, those people exist, but I'm a black trans queer man.
Yes.
And I'm not overly masculine, but I'm not flamboyant either. So being able to have deaths of characters from our community represented on TV is vitally important.
Absolutely.
That took us all off.
No, you're good. Now there's a story before we're done. There's a story that just developed, and I'm going to read that to you, and we'll talk about that as we get ready to close today's show, because this is an important
That
issue.
time went fast.
Didn't it? You have to come back. I already told you. The invitation is there. But in the news this morning, after issuing a warning that suggested that a killer could be targeting trans women in North Carolina, 2 men were arrested. That made authorities believe it brings the investigation to a close a week where trans people faced further threats of potentially hate-filled and fueled violence. Now, Jada Peterson, who was black and transgender, was found dead in a hotel room in Charlotte on Sunday. Second black trans woman, now identified as Remy Fennell.
So a few days later, right?
Yes. It was also found dead on Thursday, April the 15th. Now, the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department issued a critical warning in response to the discovery of Fennell's body. Police are taking the possible connection seriously as they hunt for the killer. Now, the warning contained no judgment on gender identity or sex work. There's never been a more vulnerable time for them than tonight, said a police spokesperson. Now, Trefano asked for people to be hyper cautious and hyper vigilant as they search for them. Now, the day after the warning, police arrested 2 men and charged them with both of the murders. Dontarius Long and Joel Brewer were each charged with murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon. Brewer faces 2 counts of murder, 1 count of robbery, and 1 conspiracy charge, in addition to 2 counts of possession of a firearm. Police stated at a press conference their belief that Long, 21, and Brewer, 33, are responsible for killing both of the victims that we mentioned. They called the men very dangerous. The investigation remains ongoing, but after the arrests, they empathetically stated that there is no reason to believe there's any further risk to public safety. And this is the story that we've been following all month long. So this is now 15 and 16 in less than 15 and 16 weeks, in about 15 or 16 weeks in this year. So as we bring this conversation to a close, full circle in this particular moment, and we talk about representation, we talk about what it is to be in the of the transgender community, what do you say is still important, or what is lacking from representation that leads people to these kinds of crime against the transgender community?
Can I respond to that?
Certainly.
So for me, this is a full circle moment, and why I made the response that I did on IG. Just like we have all the various stop hates right now, what we need is for Arsenio Hall specifically, and Eddie Murphy specifically, and Amazon Prime specifically to come out and say stop trans hate. The reason that I say that is 12 minutes into Coming to America, 12 minutes in, they played a replay, a flashback to the first Coming to America, when Arsenio, the setting where Arsenio Hall is in the club, and he's trying
remember it well.
He's trying to get a woman for Eddie Murphy's character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this setting, Arsenio is dressed as a woman. This is where the misunderstandings of the trans community come in. He's dressed as a woman, and this woman is trying to talk to Eddie Murphy's character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember if there was a kiss or there was something, but the opposite character got sick to his stomach, right?
Yes.
And so the depiction was that this is just disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. It's a horrible act, right? Which is how many in this light are portrayed.
Yes.
So imagine a 21-year-old and a 33-year-old man sitting there watching Coming to America. This tells their brain cognitively that that's okay.
Right.
So we have to do a better job at representing things like that. And I believe these entertainers have to come out and say, you know what, this was just acting. This was the intent of the show. We have to stop trans hate. And it specifically needs to come from Black celebrities.
And I think it's also very important to have conversations like this, because at the time that they perceived the concept of the script,
right,
and it was filmed,
right,
they maybe did not have the education,
right,
or the conversations, as you said, that needs to happen on sets when you're developing these scripts.
Well, I can't give Eddie Murphy that. I can't give him that, because this was a backflash. I
Gotcha.
I
laughed
at the first Coming to America. In my ignorance, I laughed. This was last week when I watched this Coming to America too.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have to write this script in.
Gotcha.
They could have written it in and changed it and made it a more enlightening experience.
Yeah, at least cut out the part where he spewed out the yeah. I got you.
So that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. We have to do a better job of that.
You want to speak to that, Onyx?
Yeah. So I mean, the overall question, kind of wrapping this conversation up, that can go on for hours, right? Because it's needed. I think the visibility and conversation is truly the avenue to change. Even these difficult situations, like the woman who went off about her daughter, the horrible murders, Little Nas X, that's his name, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. She's so cool, ladies and gentlemen. She knew she was just playing with y'all.
No matter what side you fall on, the fact that it encourages dialogue, to me, is what's important. What I feel like has been happening is it's been swept under the rug. It hasn't been talked about. Opinions haven't been out really either, or it's been hushed little circles. But having the conversation, I think, leads to understanding and to healing. And so we can't be afraid to have that conversation. We cannot be so in our emotions that we're offended that we don't stand as a person who can enlighten somebody. And I know that's hard, because when you're offended, and people are disrespectful to you, but it's so important that we have the dialogue. And for me, that's what art is. Art is activism. Art is how you give a voice to the voiceless, how you represent an underrepresented community. And that doesn't just happen in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
In today's age, creating your own work, your own avenues holds as much value as signing a contract, because there's an audience for you. And that is a stepping stone and an avenue for you to get your story out and your message across.
All right, Jamel, take us home. Take us home. And
My final message really is just for my siblings, honestly. It's for my trans brothers and sisters who are pursuing entertainment. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep working. Keep training. Make yourself the best of the best, so that no one can deny our talent and put ourselves at the table. Whether you are a producer, a director, a writer, an actor, a singer, keep doing what you do. And if they don't let you at the table, like Onyx just said, create your own content. There is enough of us out there that are skilled enough to create and to produce. I'm producing my first short film right now with a group of folks. And I think it is so vitally important. I'm the type of person, you ain't gonna let me in. You know what? I could honestly care less. I'm gonna create my own path. And that is the way that I say, yes, our faces will be seen, our names will be known. You cannot erase us. We exist. Transhuman beings exist, and we have existed since the beginning of time. Why? Because God created us. So to all my brothers and sisters that are in the entertainment industry, keep doing what you do, because I'm gonna keep doing what I do.
And I thank all of you. Wow. Right at the gun, ladies and gentlemen. Perfectly said. Onyx Keesha Monroe. How do they get in touch with you if they want to get in touch with you on Instagram? Real quick.
All things social media at Onyx Keesha.
And Jamel, how do they get in touch with you?
Sir Jamel Ashley. That's SirJamelAshely.
And Dr. Nicholas.
Dr. Elijah Nicholas.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to get on out of here. Make it a great day.